I always thought rock bottom was a myth, like unicorns or honest politicians. Turns out it's my wife's speakerphone on a Tuesday night in October, broadcasting my humiliation to her giggling girlfriends like some twisted reality show. My name is Eric Holt, and I manage Peterson's Hardware on Main Street in Millbrook, New Hampshire. Not exactly a glamorous job, but it pays the bills and keeps me busy fixing other people's problems. If only I'd been better at fixing my own. The house was buzzing with female energy when I got home from work that evening. Marissa had invited her usual crew over for what she called girls' night. Chelsea, her gossipy best friend who worked at the bank, Rena, who spent more time on Instagram than in reality, and Beth, Marissa's sister-in-law, who never liked me from day one. I could hear their laughter echoing from the living room as I hung my jacket in the hallway. Wine glasses clinked, and someone had ordered way too much Thai food based on the containers scattered across our granite countertop. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, thinking I'd just retreat to the garage and work on my motorcycle until they finished whatever drama they were dissecting tonight. That's when I heard my name. Eric has no idea, Marissa's voice carried clearly through the house. He thinks everything is fine, but honestly, girls, I'm done. Completely done. I froze halfway to the garage door, beer bottle halfway to my lips. Chelsea's voice chimed in. Wait, are you serious? Like divorce serious? Completely serious, Marissa replied, and I could hear the whine in her voice. I've been thinking about this for months. He's just so ordinary. You know? Tyler makes me feel alive again. Tyler. The personal trainer at Elite Fitness where Marissa had been spending 3 hours every evening for the past 6 months. Suddenly, her newfound dedication to physical fitness made perfect sense. Put him on speaker, Rena squealed. Call him right now. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Marissa's contact photo, a smiling picture from our honeymoon in Cabo 5 years ago, filled the screen. My thumb hovered over the answer button as female voices giggled in anticipation from the next room. I answered. Hey, honey. Eric. Marissa's voice had that fake cheerful tone she used when she wanted something. The girls and I were just talking, and we think it's time for some honesty in our marriage. More giggling. Someone, probably Chelsea, whispered, Do it, loud enough for me to hear. Okay, I said carefully. What kind of honesty? The kind where I tell you that we're done forever. The words exploded from her mouth like she'd been holding them in for years. I'm in love with Tyler, I've been sleeping with him for 4 months, and frankly, Eric, you never satisfied me anyway. Not emotionally, not physically, not financially. You're just adequate, and I'm tired of adequate. The living room erupted in shocked laughter and excited chatter. Someone clinked a wine glass against another in what sounded like a toast. Beth's voice carried clearly. Oh my God, Marissa, his face must be priceless right now. He can't even see his face, Rena added between giggles, but I bet he's just standing there with his mouth open like a fish. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. She wasn't wrong. My reflection showed a 38-year-old man with thinning brown hair, wearing a Peterson's Hardware polo shirt, holding a Budweiser and looking like someone had just told him Santa Claus was a lie. Chelsea's voice joined the chorus. Eric, honey, are you still there? Cat got your tongue? The cruelty in their laughter hit me like a physical blow. These women had eaten at my dinner table, accepted Christmas gifts from me, smiled to my face at neighborhood barbecues. Now they were treating my marriage's destruction like entertainment. But something strange happened in that moment. Instead of crumbling, instead of begging or crying or making a scene, I felt something cold and calculating settle into my chest. My reflection in the mirror straightened up, and when I spoke, my voice was perfectly calm. Understood, Marissa. I appreciate the honesty. Take care of yourself. I hung up. The sudden silence from the living room was deafening. I could picture them staring at each other, wine glasses frozen halfway to their lips, wondering why I hadn't fallen apart on cue. My phone immediately started buzzing again. I turned it off. Instead of going to the garage, I walked upstairs to our bedroom, my bedroom now, I supposed, and opened my laptop. Marissa always thought I was just a simple hardware store manager, too dumb and too nice to cause any real problems. She had no idea that I'd been handling the finances for Peterson's Hardware for 15 years, managing inventory systems, supplier relationships, and complex logistics. She definitely had no idea that I'd been quietly managing our personal finances the same way, keeping detailed records of everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, investment portfolios, the mortgage, insurance policies, I had access to all of it. Marissa preferred to let me handle the boring money stuff, while she focused on her career in human resources at TechFlow Solutions. Funny how someone in HR could be so bad at managing human relationships. I spent the next 3 hours methodically protecting myself. Joint checking account, funds transferred to my personal account that Marissa had never bothered to learn existed. Joint savings, same treatment. Credit cards where I was the primary holder, her access revoked. Investment accounts, moved to my name only, which was legally permissible since I could prove I'd funded them entirely with my income. By midnight, Marissa's financial access to our shared life had been surgically removed. Legal, clean, and completely devastating. The girls' night had ended around 11, and I heard car doors slamming and engines starting as her support crew departed, probably still high on the drama they'd witnessed. Marissa stumbled upstairs around 11:30, wine-drunk and probably expecting to find me either gone or groveling. Instead, she found me calmly packing a suitcase. "Eric?" Her voice was uncertain now, missing the cruel confidence from earlier. "What are you doing?" "Taking your advice," I replied without looking up from folding my shirts. "Moving on with my life." "Wait, I mean, we should talk about this. Figure out the logistics." "The logistics are already figured out." I zipped the suitcase closed and faced her. "I'll be staying at Pete's garage apartment until I find my own place. The house is in both our names, but good luck making the mortgage payments without access to any bank accounts." Her face went pale. "What do you mean, without access?" "I mean exactly what I said, Marissa. You destroyed your marriage on speakerphone for entertainment, and now you get to live with the consequences. You can't just cut me off financially. That's illegal." "Actually, it's not. Everything I moved was legally mine. Check with your lawyer if you want, but I suggest you call Tyler first. Maybe he can help with the mortgage." I walked toward the stairs, suitcase in hand. At the bedroom doorway, I paused. "Oh, and Marissa, next time you want to humiliate someone, make sure they're not smarter than you think they are." I heard her frantically trying to turn her phone back on as I left. Pete Morrison, my best friend since high school, had become my temporary refuge. Now, he owned Morrison's auto repair and the apartment above his shop. "So, let me get this straight," Pete said the next morning over coffee. "Marissa thought she could dump you on speakerphone and you just handled it?" "I handled it," I confirmed. "Legally and completely." Pete grinned. "Man, I wish I could see her face when she tries to use her debit card today." My phone rang at 9:47 a.m. It was Marissa's mother. "Eric Holt, what have you done to my daughter?" Margaret Ashford's voice could cut glass. "Good morning, Mrs. Ashford. I haven't done anything. I've simply protected myself from further financial abuse." "Financial abuse? She's your wife." "Was my wife. As of last night, she made it clear our marriage is over. I'm respecting her wishes." "You can't leave her with no money. She has bills to pay, a life to maintain." "Then I suggest she call Tyler. A personal trainer can help her maintain her lifestyle." The silence was long. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. "This isn't over, Eric." "You're absolutely right, Mrs. Ashford. It's just beginning." By noon, the Millbrook gossip machine was in full swing. Marissa had been trying to control the narrative, but in small towns, secrets don't last long. Chelsea worked at the bank, processing most of the town's transactions. When word spread that I'd emptied our joint accounts, people began asking why. Rena's Instagram didn't help either. She'd posted, "When your girl tells her husband the truth." Small towns and social media don't mix well. Sarah Chen, who ran the flower shop, came in looking for picture wire. "Eric," she asked, "I hope you're okay. There are rumors." "I'm fine, Sarah. Thanks for asking." "Well, Marissa was at the coffee shop this morning, saying you stole her money and abandoned her." "Did she mention why I might have done that?" "No, she just said you had a fight and overreacted." "A fight?" I almost laughed. "Is that what she's calling it?" Sarah shifted uncomfortably, fishing for more. "Let me ask you something," I said. "If your husband announced in front of everyone that he'd been cheating on you for months, that you'd never satisfied him, and your marriage was over, what would you do?" Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, she didn't. On speakerphone. For entertainment." By closing time, I'd had similar conversations with 6 customers, calmly telling the truth and letting Marissa's actions speak for themselves. The next morning, Tyler Jensen showed up at the hardware store. Tyler was everything I wasn't. Tall, muscular, and always perfectly tanned. He wore designer workout clothes that probably cost more than I made in a week. "Eric, right?" He extended his hand, which I ignored. "We need to talk." "Do we?" "Look, man, this got out of hand. Marissa feels terrible about how things went down last night." "I'm sure she does. She's in a tough spot financially. Maybe we could work something out, a temporary arrangement until she gets back on her feet." I looked directly at him. "Tyler, let me make sure I understand. You've been sleeping with my wife for 4 months. She humiliated me, and now you want me to pay her bills so you two can continue?" His smile faltered. "When you put it like that, how else would I put it? Look, I get that you're hurt, but Marissa and I, we have something real, something you two never had." I felt that cold calculation again. "You're right, Tyler. What you and Marissa have is something we never had." He brightened, thinking he'd gotten through to me. "You have a relationship built on lies, betrayal, and public humiliation. You're welcome to it." His smile disappeared entirely. "Don't be a dick about this, man. We're trying to handle this like adults." "Adults?" I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Adults don't announce their affairs on speakerphone for entertainment. Adults don't send their boyfriend to negotiate their divorce settlements. And adults sure as hell don't expect their victims to fund their new lifestyle. Tyler's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I saw something ugly flash behind his perfect facade. "You know what your problem is, Eric? You're bitter because you couldn't keep your woman happy. Maybe if you'd spent less time playing with screws and more time in the gym. Get out of my store." "What?" "Get out, now, before I call the police and have you trespassed." He took a step closer, using his size to try to intimidate me. "You think you're tough now? You think cutting off her money makes you some kind of man?" "I think it makes me someone who doesn't pay for his wife's boyfriend's lifestyle. Last warning, Tyler. Leave." He stared at me for a long moment, probably calculating whether he could physically intimidate me into compliance. But we were in public, in broad daylight, and there were customers in the store who were very obviously listening to every word. "This isn't over," he said finally. "You're the second person to tell me that in 2 days. I'm starting to think you're all right." After he left, Mrs. Patterson, who'd been pretending to examine garden hoses while listening to the entire conversation, approached the counter. "Eric, honey, that man was completely out of line." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. And for what it's worth, the whole town's talking about what Marissa did to you. Most people think she got exactly what she deserved." That afternoon, I decided it was time to take a more active approach to my situation. The beauty of small-town dynamics is that everyone thinks they understand how the game is played, but most people are terrible at actually playing it. Marissa had spent years cultivating her image as the perfect wife, the successful career woman, the social butterfly who brought class and sophistication to our little corner of New Hampshire. What she'd never understood was that image management is a full-time job, and she'd just committed professional suicide. I spent my lunch break on Wednesday driving around town, making strategic stops. First, the post office, where Helen Rodriguez had been sorting mail and collecting gossip for 23 years. "Eric," she called out when I walked in. "How are you holding up, honey?" "I'm doing well, Helen. Thanks for asking." "I heard about what happened. That girl always thought she was too good for this town." "Marissa's free to make her own choices," I said diplomatically. "I just wish she'd made them before we got married instead of after." Helen leaned across the counter conspiratorially. "Is it true she was carrying on with that trainer boy for months?" "I only found out Tuesday night, but apparently everyone else knew before I did." "Well, that's just shameful. Carrying on like that and then humiliating you in front of people. Her poor mother must be mortified." Actually, Margaret Ashford was probably planning my murder, but I kept that observation to myself. Next stop, Elite Fitness. I'd never set foot in Tyler's domain before. The gym was all chrome and mirrors, with pounding music and the smell of sweat and ambition. Tyler was with a client, demonstrating proper form on some complicated-looking machine, his perfect smile in full effect. I didn't approach him. Instead, I walked up to the front desk, where a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings was scrolling through her phone. "Hi," I said. "I'm Eric Holt. I think you know my wife, Marissa?" Her expression immediately became guarded. Yeah, she works out here?" "Worked out here. I'm not sure if she'll be able to afford the membership anymore, so I wanted to make sure you knew she might need to cancel." "Oh, okay." Also, I wanted to thank Tyler for being so supportive during our difficult time. It really means a lot when someone goes above and beyond to help a client through their personal problems. The girl's eyes widened slightly. She was young, but she wasn't stupid. The sarcasm in my voice was subtle enough to maintain plausible deniability, but clear enough to plant seeds. "I'll let him know you stopped by." "Thanks. Oh, and if anyone asks, you can tell them I said Tyler and Marissa deserve each other. They're perfect together." By Thursday morning, the narrative had shifted completely. Instead of being the cruel husband who'd abandoned his wife, I'd become the victim of a calculated affair. Instead of Marissa being the wronged woman seeking freedom, she was the cheating wife who'd been caught and cut off. The change was visible everywhere. At the coffee shop, conversation stopped when Marissa walked in. At the grocery store, people who used to chat with her suddenly became very interested in their shopping lists. Even her own co-workers at TechFlow Solutions started treating her differently. I knew this because Janet Walsh, who worked in accounting at TechFlow, came into the hardware store Thursday afternoon looking for a new lock. "Eric, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but what Marissa did was just awful." "Thank you, Janet." "The whole office is talking about it, especially after what happened yesterday." I looked up from the lock display. "What happened yesterday?" "Oh, you didn't hear? Tyler showed up at the office during lunch, and he and Marissa got into this huge argument in the parking lot. Something about money and him not wanting to carry her financially. People were watching from the windows. Interesting. Trouble in paradise already." "The thing is," Janet continued, "everyone always thought Marissa was so professional, so put together. But now we're all wondering what else she's been lying about." That evening, I got a call from Chelsea. "Eric, we need to talk." "Do we?" "Look, I know you're mad about Tuesday night, but you have to understand. We were all drinking, and Marissa was upset." "Upset about what, Chelsea? About having to pretend to be married to me while she was sleeping with Tyler?" "It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" Silence. "Chelsea, you were there. You heard what she said. You laughed when she said I never satisfied her. You toasted when she announced our marriage was over. What exactly are you calling to apologize for?" "I'm calling because Marissa is my friend, and she's really struggling right now." "And?" "And maybe you could ease up a little. Let her have access to some money while she figures things out." I almost laughed. "Let me ask you something, Chelsea. When your husband cheated on you 3 years ago, did you pay his girlfriend's rent?" "That's different." "How?" Because it just is." "No, it's not different at all. The only difference is that when you found out about David's affair, you had friends who supported you. Marissa had friends who enabled her." "We didn't enable anything." "You knew about Tyler, didn't you?" Another long silence. "Chelsea?" "We suspected, but you didn't tell me. You didn't try to stop her. You just watched her destroy our marriage and then cheered when she finally did it publicly." "Eric, please." "I'm not the villain here, Chelsea. I'm just the only one who's refusing to pretend this is normal." I hung up. Friday brought a new development that I hadn't expected. Pete called me at work, laughing so hard he could barely speak. "Dude, you have got to see this." "See what?" "Tyler's car. Someone decorated it." I left the store in the capable hands of my assistant manager and drove to Elite Fitness. A small crowd had gathered in the parking lot, all staring at Tyler's pristine white BMW. Someone had covered it entirely in gym towels, the cheap, rough kind that fitness centers use. But these towels had been soaked in something that smelled like a combination of fish oil and protein powder. The smell was overwhelming, and the towels had been secured with what looked like industrial zip ties. Tyler stood in the middle of the crowd, red-faced and furious, trying to cut the zip ties with a pair of scissors that were clearly inadequate for the job. "This is vandalism," he shouted to no one in particular. "When I find out who did this—" "Probably someone who's tired of you parking like you own the whole lot," suggested an elderly man who was clearly enjoying the show. "Or maybe someone who thinks you need more towels for all that sweating you do," added a woman with a baby stroller. The crowd was loving it. Tyler, the golden boy of Elite Fitness, was being publicly humiliated, and his perfect image was literally stinking up the parking lot. I watched for a few minutes, then walked over to him. "Need some help?" I asked innocently. He looked up at me with pure hatred. "Did you do this?" "Do what? Offer to help?" "You know what I mean." "Tyler, I sell hardware for a living. If I'd wanted to vandalize your car, I would have used better zip ties. These look like the cheap ones from the dollar store." Several people in the crowd snickered. "Besides," I continued, "I've been at work all morning. Janet Walsh was in buying a lock around 10, Mrs. Patterson needed garden supplies around 11, and the Hendersons were there until noon getting paint mixed. Feel free to check." Tyler's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. He couldn't accuse me directly without proof, but he knew I was behind it somehow. The truth was, I hadn't done it myself. But Pete Morrison had a lot of friends in this town, and when I'd mentioned over coffee that morning how Tyler's BMW always seemed to take up 2 parking spaces, Pete had just smiled and said, "Huh, that's interesting." "You know what, Tyler?" I said loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Maybe this is just the universe telling you that your actions have consequences. Maybe someone's trying to teach you that when you mess with other people's lives, sometimes life messes back." I walked away to the sound of laughter and Tyler cursing as he struggled with the zip ties. That night, Marissa called me directly for the first time since Tuesday. "Eric, we need to talk." "No, we don't." "Yes, we do. This has gone far enough." What has gone far enough? You know what? The financial stuff, turning people against me, whatever you did to Tyler's car. I didn't touch Tyler's car. Right, just like you didn't coordinate this whole campaign to destroy my reputation. Marissa, I haven't had to destroy your reputation. You did that yourself on Tuesday night. That was private. No, it wasn't. You put me on speakerphone in front of 4 people, and at least one of them posted about it on social media. You made it public. I want half of everything, Eric. The house, the savings, the investments. I'm entitled to half. You're entitled to whatever a divorce court says you're entitled to. Until then, you're entitled to nothing. I'll sue you. With what money? Your lawyer's going to want a retainer. The line went quiet for a long moment. I hate you, she said finally. I know, I replied. But you hated me before, too. You were just better at hiding it. Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor to Pete's garage. I was helping him replace the transmission on a 2018 Ford pickup when Margaret Ashford's silver Lexus pulled into the lot. Marissa's mother emerged from the car like she was preparing for battle, which, knowing Margaret, she probably was. She wore a navy blue suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and her silver hair was pulled back in a style that could have been used as a weapon. Eric Holt, we need to discuss this situation. Pete looked up from under the hood of the Ford. Morning, Mrs. Ashford. Beautiful day, isn't it? She ignored him completely, focusing all her attention on me. This childish behavior needs to stop immediately. What childish behavior would that be? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Cutting off Marissa's access to money, turning the entire town against her, that disgusting display with Tyler's car yesterday. Mrs. Ashford, I protected my own financial assets after my wife announced she was leaving me for another man. That's not childish, that's practical. She's your wife. You have a responsibility to support her. Had a wife, I corrected, and my responsibility ended when she decided to end our marriage on speakerphone for her friend's entertainment. Margaret's face flushed red. That was a mistake. She'd been drinking, she was emotional. She was honest, I interrupted, probably for the first time in months. Eric, please, she's my daughter. I can't stand to see her like this. For just a moment, Margaret's composure cracked, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine fear. Not fear of me, but fear for Marissa. How is she? I asked, surprised to find I actually cared. She's not doing well. She can't afford her apartment without your income. Tyler isn't. He's not being as supportive as she hoped. She's talking about moving back home. The thought of 35-year-old Marissa moving back into her childhood bedroom almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. Mrs. Ashford, your daughter made her choices. She chose Tyler over me, humiliated me publicly, and ended our marriage. I'm just living with the consequences of her decisions. But you don't have to make it so hard for her. Actually, I do, because if I don't, she'll never learn that actions have consequences, and neither will anyone else who might be thinking about doing the same thing. Margaret stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to figure out when the quiet, accommodating son-in-law had been replaced by this stranger. You're not the man I thought you were, she finally said. You're absolutely right. I'm not the man any of you thought I was. That's the problem. After she left, Pete emerged from under the Ford's hood, grinning. Man, I've been waiting years to see someone stand up to the Ice Queen. She's just worried about her daughter. Her daughter should have thought about that before she decided to blow up her life on speakerphone. That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to the Millbrook Community Center, where the Fall Festival Planning Committee was meeting. Marissa had been on this committee for 3 years, helping organize the town's biggest event. The festival was just a week away, and it was where the town's social hierarchy was on full display. The committee met in the center's conference room. A dozen volunteers gathered around a table full of clipboards, contracts, and coffee cups. When I walked in, the conversation stopped abruptly. Eric, Susan Martinez, the committee chair, looked genuinely surprised. We weren't expecting you. I know Marissa usually handles our family's involvement, but with everything going on, I thought I should come myself. Everyone in the room knew about the circumstances. Small towns don't keep secrets. Of course, Susan said cautiously. We weren't sure if Marissa would be participating this year. I can't speak for Marissa, but I'd like to volunteer myself. I was thinking I could run one of the game booths. That's wonderful, Eric. Which booth? I smiled. The dunk tank. The dunk tank was a fall festival tradition. For $5, people could throw baseballs at a target and try to dunk whoever was brave enough to sit on the platform above the tank. It was always a crowd favorite, especially when local celebrities volunteered. Oh, Susan said, clearly unsure. Well, we usually have volunteers sit in the tank for hour-long shifts. I'll take a 4-hour shift, I said. 2 to 6 on Saturday afternoon, prime time. Are you sure? It'll be cold by then, and people get pretty enthusiastic about dunking. I'm sure. In fact, I'd like to make it more interesting. Instead of $5 for 3 throws, how about $10 for 5 throws, with all proceeds going to the volunteer fire department? The room buzzed with interest. The volunteer fire department was always underfunded, and this could raise a lot of money. That's very generous, Eric, Susan said. But are you sure you want to sit in the dunk tank for 4 hours? Absolutely. I think it'll be therapeutic. What I didn't tell them was that I had already arranged for Pete to set up a small PA system near the dunk tank. I planned to spend those 4 hours providing commentary on everyone who came to try to dunk me. Public therapy, small-town style. Word of my dunk tank marathon spread quickly. By Monday, it was the talk of the town. People were genuinely curious about what Eric Holt was planning, and some were already making plans to attend just to see the show. Tuesday brought another unexpected development. Tyler showed up at the hardware store again, but this time he looked different. Gone was the confident swagger, the perfect smile, the designer workout clothes. Instead, he looked tired, stressed, and desperate. Eric, we need to make a deal. We need to do nothing. Look, this thing with Marissa, it's gotten complicated. Relationships built on lies usually do. She's not handling this well. The money thing, the social stuff, people treating her differently, she's talking crazy. Crazy how? Tyler shifted uncomfortably. She wants me to move in with her, help with expenses. But I can't afford to support both of us, and honestly, he trailed off. Honestly what? Honestly, she's not the same person she was when we were just, when it was just fun. I almost laughed. You mean when she was married to someone else and you didn't have to deal with the reality of actually being with her? Something like that. Tyler, let me give you some free advice. When someone cheats with you, they'll cheat on you. When someone lies to their spouse, they'll lie to you. And when someone destroys their life for dramatic effect, they'll eventually try to destroy yours too. So, what am I supposed to do? That's not my problem. You wanted her, you got her. Congratulations. Eric, come on. We're both men here. You know how these things happen. No, I don't. I've never cheated on my wife. I've never slept with someone else's wife. And I've never asked the husband to pay for my girlfriend's lifestyle. So no, Tyler, I don't know how these things happen. He left looking even more defeated than when he'd arrived. Wednesday evening, I got a call that I'd been expecting for days. Eric, it's Chelsea. I need to tell you something. I'm listening. It's about Marissa and Tyler and what really happened. What really happened when? All of it. The affair, the planning, Tuesday night, everything. I sat down on Pete's couch, suddenly very interested. I'm listening. The thing is, Eric, Marissa didn't just decide to leave you on Tuesday night. She'd been planning it for weeks. The speakerphone thing, the public humiliation, all of it was deliberate. Why are you telling me this? Because I can't live with it anymore. Because what she did was cruel and calculated, and you didn't deserve it. What exactly did she plan? Chelsea took a deep breath. She wanted to humiliate you so badly that you'd just disappear. She thought if she destroyed you publicly, you'd be too embarrassed to fight for anything. She figured you'd just slink away and let her have the house, the money, everything. And you went along with this? We all did. Rena, Beth, me. She convinced us that you were holding her back, that you were this pathetic loser who didn't deserve her. She made it sound like she was doing you a favor by setting you free. But you didn't disappear. You fought back. And now she's furious because her plan backfired, and she's taking it out on everyone around her. Including Tyler? Especially Tyler. She's demanding that he support her financially, emotionally, socially. She wants him to replace everything she lost when she left you, but he's just a personal trainer. He doesn't have the money or the social position or the stability you provided. And now she's your problem. She's everyone's problem. She calls me 10 times a day, crying, demanding I fix things. She's alienated half the town, Tyler's about to dump her, and her mom's threatening to cut her off financially if she doesn't straighten up. I processed the information silently. Marissa's public humiliation of me wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated attack meant to destroy me so I wouldn't fight back. Chelsea, why are you really calling me? Because I want to make it right. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I want to help you. Help me how? The Fall Festival, Saturday. I know you're planning something with the dunk tank. How do you know that? Because it's Millbrook. Everyone knows everything. So, what are you planning? I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. I'm planning to let people dunk me in cold water for charity. Eric, and I'm planning to answer any questions they have while they do it. What kind of questions? Any kind. About my marriage, the affair, what really happened Tuesday night. Complete honesty, public forum. The line went quiet. Chelsea? You still there? That's brilliant. Terrible. But exactly what this town needs. I think so, too. Eric? For what it's worth, I really am sorry. We were wrong. All of us. I know, Chelsea, and I appreciate you telling me the truth. After I hung up, I sat in Pete's living room, thinking about Saturday. In 4 days, I'd sit in that dunk tank and let half the town take their shots at me, literally and figuratively. But I'd also have 4 hours to tell my story, unfiltered and unchallenged. Marissa tried to destroy me with public humiliation. Now it was my turn. Saturday morning was crisp and clear, perfect for the Millbrook Fall Festival. I woke up in Pete's apartment, feeling calmer than I had in weeks. Today was the day I'd been planning for, and I was ready. Pete was already up, cooking breakfast. You sure about this? 4 hours in a dunk tank is brutal. I'm sure. Besides, I brought a wetsuit. A wetsuit? I'm not stupid, Pete. Cold water is cold water. The festival setup started at 8 a.m. I arrived early to help position the dunk tank right in the center of the main thoroughfare. Susan had outdone herself with the PA system. My voice would carry across the entire festival. By noon, the festival was in full swing. Families walked between booths selling cider, toys, fried dough, and barbecue. Children ran around, sticky-fingered and smiling. At 1:45, I changed into my wetsuit behind the volunteer fire department's trailer and walked to the dunk tank. A small crowd had already gathered, and I saw people pointing as I climbed onto the platform. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the microphone, welcome to the most honest 4 hours in Millbrook history. The crowd laughed, and I settled onto the bench above the ice-cold water. The rules are simple, I continued. $10 for 5 throws, all proceeds go to the volunteer fire department. But here's the special deal. For every $1 you donate, you get to ask me one question. Any question, and I promise to answer it honestly. The first customer was Tommy Henderson, a 16-year-old kid with a wicked fastball who'd been throwing strikes since Little League. Mr. Holt, he said, handing Susan a $20 bill. Is it true your wife cheated on you with Tyler from the gym? It is true, Tommy, for about 4 months, apparently. Tommy wound up and fired. The ball hit the target squarely, and I plunged into the freezing water to the cheers of the growing crowd. I climbed back onto the platform, dripping and grinning. Good arm, Tommy. Next question? Did you really clean out all her bank accounts? I moved my money out of our joint accounts, yes. Every penny I moved was money I had earned and deposited myself. Another throw, another splash, another cheer from the crowd. By 2:30, word had spread throughout the festival, and a steady line had formed at the dunk tank. People weren't just coming to dunk me, they were coming to hear the story straight from the source. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman who'd defended me at the hardware store, stepped up with a $50 bill. Eric, honey, what exactly happened that Tuesday night? I told the whole story. The girls' night, the speakerphone call, Marissa's cruel announcement, and her friend's laughter. I described my calm response and my methodical protection of my assets. The crowd listened in rapt attention, and when Mrs. Patterson threw her first ball and missed, several people groaned in disappointment. Don't worry, Mrs. Patterson, I called out. You've got 4 more throws and 49 more questions. At 3:15, I spotted familiar faces in the crowd. Chelsea stood near the back, looking uncomfortable but unable to leave. Rena was there too, filming everything on her phone, probably for Instagram, though I doubted this content would get the same enthusiastic response as her Team Marissa post from Tuesday night. Then I saw Tyler. He pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. People stepped aside to let him pass, and conversations quieted as everyone realized who he was. $10, he said, slapping a bill down on Susan's table. Tyler Jensen, everyone, I announced into the microphone. Millbrook's own personal trainer and homewrecker. What's your question, Tyler? Why are you doing this? Because you and my wife thought you could humiliate me publicly, and I'd just disappear quietly. You were wrong. Tyler wound up and threw hard. The ball sailed wide right, missing the target by 2 feet. The crowd laughed, and Tyler's face got redder. 4 more throws, Tyler. 4 more questions. What do you want from us? Nothing. I want absolutely nothing from either of you. That's the point. Another throw, another miss. Tyler was letting his anger affect his aim. Are you going to keep this up forever? Keep what up? Telling the truth? Protecting myself? Living my life? Yes, Tyler, I'm going to keep that up forever. Third throw, third miss. The crowd was starting to enjoy Tyler's failure as much as they'd enjoyed the successful dunks. You're destroying her. No, Tyler, she destroyed herself. I'm just refusing to clean up the mess. Tyler's fourth throw was wild, sailing over the dunk tank entirely and landing somewhere in the crowd. People scattered, laughing. One more throw, one more question, I called out. Tyler stepped closer to the tank, his voice low but still audible through the microphone. This isn't over. You're right, I replied. It's not over, it's just beginning, because now everyone knows exactly who you are and what you're capable of, and they'll remember. Tyler's final throw was the hardest yet, but anger had completely ruined his coordination. The ball hit the ground 3 feet in front of the target and bounced harmlessly away. Thanks for playing, Tyler. Better luck next time. He stormed away to a mixture of laughter and scattered applause. At 4:30, with an hour and a half left in my marathon, I saw her. Marissa stood at the edge of the crowd, wearing a designer jacket that I'd bought her for Christmas last year and sunglasses that couldn't quite hide her red-rimmed eyes. She looked smaller than I remembered, diminished somehow, as if the past week had physically shrunk her. The crowd noticed her, too. Conversations hushed, and people turned to stare. Someone whispered, "That's her," and the rumor spread through the crowd like wildfire. She walked slowly toward the dunk tank, and the crowd parted to let her through. When she reached Susan's table, she pulled out her wallet and placed a $100 bill on the surface. 100 questions, she said, her voice barely audible. Marissa, I said into the microphone, and my voice carried across the suddenly silent festival grounds. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. She picked up the first baseball, weighing it in her hand. Why didn't you fight for us? The question caught me off guard. Of all the things she might have asked, I hadn't expected that. Because there was no us to fight for, I replied. You'd already decided we were over months ago. You just didn't tell me until Tuesday night. She threw the ball. It hit the target perfectly, and I dropped into the freezing water. When I surfaced and climbed back up, she was already holding the second ball. Did you ever love me? Yes, very much. That's why this hurt so badly. Splash. Do you hate me now? No, Marissa. I don't hate you. I just don't trust you, and I don't want to be married to you. Splash. What did I do wrong? That question hung in the air for a long moment. The crowd was completely silent, waiting for my answer. You fell out of love with me, and instead of being honest about it, you decided to destroy me to make yourself feel better about leaving. Splash. Can you ever forgive me? I already have, Marissa, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean going back. She stood there holding the fifth baseball, tears streaming down her face. The crowd waited, but she didn't throw it. I'm sorry, she whispered, but the microphone picked it up and carried it across the festival grounds. I know you are, I replied, but you're sorry you got caught, not sorry you did it. She dropped the ball and walked away, leaving 95 questions unused. At 6 p.m., Susan Martinez officially closed the dunk tank. I'd been dunked 247 times, answered countless questions, and raised over $3,000 for the volunteer fire department. More importantly, I'd told my story completely and honestly, and the town had listened. As I changed out of my wetsuit, Pete appeared with a towel and a thermos of hot coffee. So, he said, grinning, how do you feel? I thought about it for a moment, watching the festival crowds beginning to thin as families headed home for dinner. Free, I said finally. I feel free. That night, I sat in Pete's apartment, warming up with a hot shower and a good meal, when my phone rang one final time. It was Margaret Ashford. Eric, she said, and her voice sounded different. Older, more tired. I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, Mrs. Ashford. Yes, I do. I raised a daughter who thought she could treat people cruelly and face no consequences. I enabled her behavior, and I blamed you for her choices. I was wrong. What's going to happen to her? She's moving back home. Tyler broke up with her this evening, right after the festival. She has no job, no money, and no friends. She'll have to rebuild her entire life. I'm sorry it came to this. No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. She made her choices, and now she has to live with them. Margaret paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. She lost everything, Eric. Everything that mattered to her. Her marriage, her independence, her reputation, her relationship with Tyler, her friendships, her place in this community. Everything. Yes, I said quietly. She did. And you planned it that way. No, Mrs. Ashford. I didn't plan any of this. I just refused to be destroyed quietly. Everything else was her choice. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet apartment, thinking about the past week and everything that had changed. Marissa had tried to humiliate me into submission, to break me so completely that I'd slink away and let her have everything she wanted. Instead, she'd lost everything that mattered to her, while I'd discovered exactly how strong I really was. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Saw what you did today. Impressive. Would you like to have coffee sometime? Sarah, from the flower shop. I smiled and typed back. I'd like that very much. Outside Pete's window, the lights of Millbrook twinkled in the darkness, and for the first time in months, the future looked bright.